This is Tim.
This is Jason.
And this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo with Jason in Portland, Oregon. How are you doing?
I am excellent. I'm dug out from the snow. My power came back on. And I'm ready to do the only thing I am qualified to do, and that is talk comic books.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's good to work with, take advantage of your qualifications.
Yeah.
So,
Don't ask me to change a tire. I've never changed a tire in my life.
Me neither.
Yeah. My neighbor needed some help, and I was like, buddy, you're on your own. That's how people get hurt. I'll stand over here. I'll dig a hole if you die, but I ain't getting near that.
So, the comic we're talking about this time is called Duplicant, written by Karla Nappi, and artist is Marianna Strychowska, and this has been kickstarted, I guess. Karla sent a couple of PDFs. She said the first PDF was the first two issues kind of combined, and I got about 40 pages into it. I wanted to read more, but I ran out of time.
I read the PDF that you sent over, so I didn't notice an issue break. To me, it felt like a continuous story.
No,
so.
I didn't notice one either. I'm not sure where the break was. So in this story, sometime in the future, there is a pandemic, and they refer to it as a pandemic of organ failure. But
yes.
Organ failure is not contagious, so I assume it's some disease that's causing organ failure, but they never name a disease.
We'll talk about that. I had a similar hiccup on that. But go on.
Yeah. So as I gathered, organ transplants are illegal in this country, in the story, but there's a corporation called Regenerist that's making synthetic organs that are being put in people when their organs fail. But if the people don't have the money to pay for the implant, they are legally obligated to kind of work off their debt for the company or something, work for the company.
They literally become auctioned off.
Yeah, there's an auction. And so we have this woman named Pamela who has a lung failure, and she has artificial lungs put in her. And so I was a little confused by this. I felt like it wasn't explained quite well enough. So we see the auction, and this guy wins the auction, but I never figured out what his name was. There was a reference at some point to someone named Francis, but the guy's name was never mentioned in a scene he was in. So I wasn't sure what his name was or who he was. What company was he? Was he the CEO of Regenerist? But if that was the case, why would he be bidding?
He's just a slimeball who's taking advantage of poor people by purchasing them like cattle. I don't know that we got his name. Francis is the name of the CEO of Regenerist.
Okay, I guess
that guy is just a James Spader creep.
Okay.
From the 80s. That hair. As soon as I saw that hair, I was like, you can't trust that guy. No. But go on. Is that your plot summary? I don't want to interrupt you.
Well, so at this point, I wanted to say a few things, but before that, I'll let you kind of comment. What did you think of the story at this point?
At this point of the whole thing, so I would agree. First off, I should say that this is I'm going through it now. The colors are great. It's well written. The colors are good. This is of a high professional quality. So even though this is a Kickstarter comic, and we all know Kickstarter has never made a good comic. I'm kidding. All my books come from Kickstarter. But initially, anytime someone on Kickstarter sends you their book, you hope it's good, right? You hope they know what they're doing, and there's a lot of things to get right in a Kickstarter. It's customer service, it's project management, it's budget, and low down on the list, it's actually making a good comic. and making a comic that's of professional quality. And this is, I would say, a professional comic, of professional quality. This would be, if you slapped an Oni label on this, a Boom label on this, a Dark Horse label on this, I wouldn't blink. This feels very professionally done from beginning to end. My only concerns when I read this whole thing, and I really liked it actually, I'm going to continue to read it, the other PDFs, is I think it's really the opening. I think the opening is a little bit. Here's the thing with open. So we're dealing with like a sci-fi world, right? Mm-hmm. I think it would be helpful if we had a point of view character that we met on page 1, and that we could experience somebody getting sick. This could be Matt. Matt is a scientist who's created these sort of like 3D. It's pretty much like a 3D printer that makes these organs, which is cool. He's sort of the pioneer of this, the scientist guy, and he's pretty much our protagonist.
Yeah.
I almost feel like the story should start with him and his loss and what motivated him, and then we jump forward to...
Yeah, we don't find that out until what's probably the second issue.
Right. So Pamela's sickness is the inciting incident. So you don't start with that. But so like the first page is about the pandemic, and there's a lot of exposition to get down, and we're not really experiencing it with any character.
No.
If you look at the art, we're not seeing actually anyone's face until the end of page 2 when we see Matt's face. And we as readers read a lot of emotion into a character's facial grammar. So it is sort of a cold opening in that we're getting a lot of information and we're not experiencing it or having empathy with any one particular character. We're having empathy for the human race, which, unfortunately, is just harder to do. Right? Like, if you tell me humanity's going to be wiped out, I'm like, yeah, no, NBD, bro. But if you tell me something bad's going to happen to Tim in Tokyo, I'm like, well, now you've got me a little concerned. Mildly concerned.
Well, but I felt like the first, 20, 30 pages, I felt like I was reading a highlight reel. Because it was just like plot point, plot point, plot point, and I wasn't getting the emotion that I needed there or connecting with any character. It just felt like just the plot is the important thing here, and we're just going to move through these points so you know what's happening. But I didn't really feel it until later on when Matt becomes a stronger part of the story.
Yeah, and that's why I think if I could change anything, it would just be the first couple pages. I would have a character moment at the beginning, so I could experience and learn all of this stuff through a point of view character, right? Like the origin of the hero. You want to experience this with Matt or with Pamela on page 1, so we have empathy for them and what they're going through. It is a little bit cold, but I would say that coldness also serves the genre of sci-fi. So yeah, it is moving quickly. I would say you would need a crowbar to fit more conflict in the story. There's a lot going on,
yes.
which is good. It's not meandering. I could say that. And the art style, we haven't talked about the art yet. The art is really good. It initially, I'm like, it's kind of sketchy, but it's sort of sketchy in like I want to say like an anime. It's very animation style, like a 60s animation style, and it works so well with the coloring that the body language and the anatomy and the way people are feeling and how their body moves, I really like seeing that in character work. So I think I'm sorry, what's the artist's name? I'm a terrible reviewer.
Anna Strychowska.
Okay. Marianna. Tim. There's an M there. Right? Am I seeing that? Marianna.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I think when I looked at it, I had something blocking part of it. You're right. It's Marianna.
Marianna, apologies. The artwork's
great. Sorry about that.
And this first page, it's such a good illustration that I hate to nitpick it. Because there's so much going on, and I would love to see what this looked like in script form, because there's just a ton going on. But we are sort of removed. I almost feel like this would be a better page 2. And if we could just open on an emotional moment before we pull back and So what I'm talking about, if you haven't read the book, is there is an exterior, like a wide exterior shot of multiple people sick and just calamity and illness and ambulances, and it is a complicated page to do well, and Marianna has done it well. But my only concern is me as a viewer, I feel detached from all this because I'm not experiencing it with anyone, and all the characters are facing away from me. And that's the same thing on page 2. The scientists are going to work. Again, the anatomy is great. There's also various types of body types, which I really like to see in a comic. Not everyone looks like they work out.
Yeah.
24/7. Like it feels, but that to me feels like a lived-in world. Like if you turn the camera in any different directions, it would just keep going. Matt has great character work. The facial grammar of what people are doing. Like if you took the dialogue out of this comic, you could still follow the emotional beats. Based on the faces, and the body language, which I think is successful.
Yeah.
To your point, there is a lot going on on this comic.
Yeah, when I read it a second time and was picking up things like, kind of making connections, because there's this like 1-page scene with a minister in a church, and then he shows up again later, and I'd forgotten about him already. Like, he appeared earlier on. I forgot about him. I forgot we'd seen him before.
And he's a victim of, there's like an organ trafficker, and I'm curious why he seems to make a bad victim, because he seems to be advocating for the villain of the piece, and the villain takes his organs. But I need to keep reading. Okay, so we've gotten through the beginning. We agree that sci-fi, there's a lot to set up here.
Yes.
And I think, opening with a character moment might have helped, but still pretty successful to get through it really quickly. The art is good. The writing itself is good. This is well written. Even if like the character work is like the dialogue isn't clunky. The dialogue is character specific. The captions, if I had another nitpick, it's that the coloring behind the captions can be a little distracting.
Oh, okay.
Did you feel that way? There's a lot of captions.
Didn't notice it, but
the color in the captions changes from like the narration to character specific. There's also computer captions. There's an apartment that talks to somebody. There are, I would say, a half dozen or more different caption coloring.
Yeah.
It's a choice. To me, it's a little distracting, but
okay. Yeah, it didn't really bother me. But yeah, I don't know. I really feel like we needed more Matt in the first part of the story, because I felt like Pamela is the main character here, and then she's dead. Like, oh, okay.
She's dead, but here's the interesting thing. She's still a character in the book. And often, like, you will kill. This is like the Mel Gibson trope, right? Like, you'll kill a female character to motivate Mel Gibson to like go on a rampage or to solve all the problems. But what I liked seeing when I kept reading is that even though she does die, she stays a character. Like, Matt learns more about her, and we are still learning about her after she passes, which I think is pretty neat, actually.
Yeah, that's
a good. This character isn't just like a pawn to be knocked off and to motivate our hero, and she's given some depth, which I appreciate.
And as the story went on, it didn't feel so. I mean, the pacing got better. I thought it wasn't just plot point, and there was more, and we could feel more what the characters were feeling. Maybe it was just a matter of as Karla warmed up, she kind of got more comfortable in telling the story.
Beginning, like, sci-fi worlds that are this dense and have this much going on, it's tough to set up. I don't know that I would have done much different, aside from opening with someone getting sick. And to your point, clarifying what the illness is, because that is a huge point that I like you, I'm like, I'm not super clear on what the organ failure is. But this story does not lack ambition. It's dealing with poverty, right? It's dealing with people in crippling debt, like yours truly, right? I always know when I pick up the phone and I hear Mr. McNamara, it's about my credit cards. It's about people losing, Pamela was one illness away from being conscripted into slavery because she got sick. Mm-hmm. And that's, we are all like one car crash or one physical ailment that we can't control away from being in crippling debt. Mm-hmm. And so that I think was really interesting. There's a lot of talk about our bodies. So there's debt, there's science. There's just a lot going on here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm scribbling through it. There's like a lot of social issues that are being tackled. There's obviously stem cell research is in here. There's faith. There's a lot.
Yes.
And then there is, Pamela's journey. Like, she is this really intelligent woman who had some adversity in life, came back, and is studying for the bar exam, and her debt is bought, and she's pretty much now forced to. This guy buys her debt. This is creepy James Spader, and he's like, "You're gonna work it off by addressing our male clients' needs," and it's just like it's awful that she has been debased, and her worth now is not her intellect. This is what you can physically do for someone. That is, that's unfortunately a topical issue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I like that she has agency. She doesn't stake here. She moves pretty quickly. Like you said, I would like to spend more time with her, but I think we're going to spend more time with her in the future.
Well, I'm wondering, too, I'm not sure how, if they were... it's not like it's a Marvel or DC where you have to tell your first chapter in 20 pages, but it seems like they might have been working with a page limit here per issue and trying to cram a lot in, and that might be why it felt like so much in the first part of the story.
Yeah, it's the same issue I have with any sort of hard sci-fi that's on television or that you read. They kind of have to. They feel like they have to set a lot up right away to make you comfortable, to justify the world, and then they can let it move. And there are some character moments later with Matt and his wife, that are really, really well done. Mm-hmm. If I have another nitpick, since we're doing this is critiquing comics, right?
Yes.
The first 3 female characters we meet, Pamela, Ava, and the boss, what was her name? Frances. They have long brown or black hair. So I did trip up. There's a scene where Ava's in the shower. We have Pamela, and then we cut to Ava in the shower, and I thought it was the same character. I had to backtrack.
Yeah, I was completely confused by that shower bit. I wasn't sure who that was or why we were being shown that.
Yeah. That, I think it's setting up the world. Water is a resource. There's a nice sort of love triangle between Ava, Matt, and the dead wife. But yeah, then we cut some of that cut felt abrupt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of the cuts were abrupt in the first part. Just like, here's this. Okay, next. That's why I said it felt like a highlight reel.
It feels like television writing. And I think what you could just do is a caption box, just to change location.
Yeah, just a better, smoother transition from scene to scene would have been nice there.
Yeah, you could simply do that with a location, a new look. Like if you change location, you could just put a little box there, like now we're here.
Yeah.
Even though we don't know the places, we would know that we changed locations. But I really liked it. I mean, we're nitpicking it because it's critiquing comics.
Well, yeah, that's what we do on this show.
Yeah. But it is professionally written, so what I look for are characters speaking in different voices. Yes. Does it feel like a lived-in world? Like there are conflicts and ideas that extend past the edges of the page? Yes, I think so. There are interesting characters. There's a bodyguard character that we meet later on. And they all feel like they could be the stars of their own movie. Mm-hmm. Or their own show, rather. There is a twist where one of Matt's former colleagues is probably the villain of the piece and trafficking in real organ donating. So yeah, it's like I do think it's just an analogous of a lot of things that are we're dealing with today. Debt and servitude and our health and pandemic.
Yeah, gee, where have I heard that word before?
Oof, like good timing, Karla. Clearly, this was in the tank before COVID happened because it's so far along. But you also have to, like you mentioned, Marvel and DC. This is somebody working on their own outside of any studio system. So I think if I could, my biggest complaint about this book is that my name isn't on the front of it, because it's pretty good. Also, we have to call out the cover art. The line work is from Leila Del Duca, who from they had a long-running series at Image with Joe Keating.
Okay.
And why am I forgetting the name of it right now? But I am. Because I only forget things when I'm on a podcast.
Yeah, when the spotlight is on. Like, what was my own name again?
I got that wrong. But Layla's here in Portland, and I see that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was nice to... I'm going to look it up now because it's driving me crazy. It was nice to get involved. Shudder. It's Shudder.
Shudder.
She was on Shudder, and then she also wrote a graphic novel called Afar, which was also really good. And she was the illustrator on Sleepless. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I did want to mention one other thing I liked. So there's this idea that the company Regenerist can cause a person's synthetic organs to fail if that person doesn't kind of follow the rules.
Yeah.
But it's presented in a way that, like, it's not necessarily reliable information. Like, maybe that's not true. It's just a rumor or something. So you're kind of wondering.
Right.
Although then there's Pamela's death is a big indicator that it seems to actually be true. But yeah, I thought that was nice to kind of have that idea, and like, oh, maybe not, and then okay.
It's a LoJack, right? Like if you run away, or your debtors can shut down your organs.
Yeah,
I think that's interesting. Yeah, I would like you said, I would like a little bit more on like explain the organ. And it's tough to get across, but if you could explain the organ failure in a really simple way.
Yeah, I felt like it was kind of taking a shortcut to just say it's an organ failure pandemic. It's a little bit too much of a shortcut because that doesn't sound like something that would be contagious. But yeah, I mean, come up with some. Well, yeah, maybe she did this before COVID, like you said, but come up with some kind of COVID-sounding virus name and say that this XYZ virus is causing people's organs to fail.
Well, my question is it always the lungs, or is it something else? It sounds like it could be any sort of organ. And that Matt has made a way to recreate organs. Which, here's the other thing, is that if you have one organ replaced, people refer to you as a duplicant?
Yeah, and then there was this kind of stigma to that, and people were afraid that the duplicants were carrying disease. So that's a whole other dimension to it, too.
Right, which also is relatable. Like, there are characters in the background talking to police saying, "No, I just have a cough," which I really like.
Yeah, the guy sneezes, and then the cop approaches him. "I just have allergies."
Right, so that's obviously relatable to the time that we're living in now. But I do feel like just a slight dialogue tweak could make that a little bit clearer. And if this is going to be collected for a trade, that is something that you can still do before it's collected for a trade. So yeah, it's just really I think we're talking about the same thing. It's really like the first 3 pages. Right? Yeah, I think that's just, it could just be a little clearer what the disease is. But I'm hooked. I'm going to read all of these because also the coloring. Let me get the colorist's name right. The color artist.
Let's see, lettering production line. Oh, Owen Gieni, Gieni.
Owen is the MVP because these colors are great. It's really there's a nice cool color palette to everything, and it really makes the line work. Just really brings the line work to life.
Yeah,
I think if this wasn't colored correctly, it wouldn't look right. or it wouldn't pop the way it does. But the way scenes change and the color tone and the shading really brings out the line work. Makes me appreciate the line work in a way that if I just saw this in black and white, I might not see it as the potential in it that the color brings. Because it is the line work can be a little sketchy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not super polished. It doesn't need to be. The character work is phenomenal.
The facial expressions.
Yeah, the facial grammar is great. The body language is great. The body types are great. Like, I appreciate all of that. The eyes. I'm looking at this mad preacher who sort of has like a Walter Goggins thing going on. The eye work is really expressive.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just feel it. If you looked at this like a foreign film without looking at the dialogue, you would feel what's going on. When Pamela gets made up for her date with the creeper whose name we don't know, like, you see how uncomfortable she is in her body language. You still recognize it's her, even though they've done up her hair. When she goes through the trauma of what she went through, you still recognize her. But there is sort of like this emotional weight to it. I don't know. It's really well done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also interesting that Matt is apparently going to be the main character, the hero of the piece, because kind of the way he was presented in like roughly the first issue, it felt more like he was going to be the villain.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree. You're not invested in him right away.
Because you got, these like huge pictures, banners out in public of him like bestowing an organ on someone, and this like he's so wonderful and all powerful, and you feel like, oh, that probably means he's terrible.
Right.
And there are rumors going around that he is that minister says he's the devil. Right. Yeah, it feels like he's going to be the villain, but once you get a little further, it seems like no, he's not. He's just the opposite.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this was good. In fact, I think you helped me to appreciate some of the things that I didn't quite latch on to.
Sci-fi is hard, especially in comic books.
Mm-hmm.
I think if this was a TV show, we wouldn't be having quite the same issues. Maybe at the introduction of Matt, but I think we wouldn't be having quite the same issues. Yeah, there's all this, my body, my life. I don't know that people get a choice. Like, you get sick and they just thrust one of these super expensive organs inside of you. So, and there's also to deal with lobbying. I think there's a lot to do with the pharmaceutical industry, the medical industry in here. Mm-hmm. She's tackling on a lot. So that's the trick, is really, can you balance all of that and deliver a really compelling story? Sometimes a simple story told really well is enough. But yeah, this character work is great. Mm-hmm. It gets better as the book goes on. I'm looking at a panel. It's Ava in her apartment, and she's talking to her. She has an AI in her apartment, and just this is a secondary character, and just the face on her is so good.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm on board. I don't know, how do these reviews normally go with you? Do you tell people to get like a real job delivering papers or something at the end? Or
well, I think some of the earliest ones that Mulele and I did like a decade ago were pretty harsh. We thought after a while we kind of got, we need to be less mean to the bad ones. Sometimes we get good ones like this, and sometimes they need a lot of work. But
right. Yeah, you put yourself in an unenviable position because nobody wants to be the bad guy, and I've certainly written my share of comic books that could be tire kicked. But there is a real emotional depth to this book, which I appreciate quite a bit. The secondary characters all feel like they have lives of their own, which is normally something I don't see in amateur scripts. I see the secondary characters only exist to prop up the main characters. That is not the case here at all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the bodyguard's name is, but he is also. You meet him later in the script, and he's also like a really interesting character. We learn a little bit about his life, and I don't know if you got to the end, but it has a good ending.
Yeah, I didn't quite make it to the end of the book, but I think I'm going to go ahead and
I'll
finish it anyway, even after
I'll wait while you read.
recording.
Yeah, so I think this is a really ambitious book. I think it's done really, really well. I'm sort of look, there's so much writing in this.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is a lot. There are many, many characters. That is really, really tough to juggle and balance as a writer. So I have a lot of respect for what Karla did here because it's tough. And it's of a really, the end product, even though it came through Kickstarter, is of a really high quality. And books like this are good for Kickstarter. Less so the Marvel and DC people that are moonlighting over there to treat it like an ATM, but real people that I don't know that Karla has other options than going to Kickstarter. Not that you need one. I think you should be able to manage your career and execute it the way you want to, but this is the type of book that I like to see on Kickstarter. And I'm familiar with Karla's name, if not her work, because she is so prevalent in the Kickstarter community. I recognize her name right away. I'm embarrassed to say I'm only now getting familiar with her work, but I'm looking forward to more.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Be sure to send us the next thing. We'll talk about it again. Your next comic.
She has a Kickstarter now. She has a Kickstarter for issue 4 of this, which I think is funding right now on Kickstarter. So if it's not too late and you're hearing this, and we made it seem like an interesting book, and I do think it is, go on over to Kickstarter and catch up on Duplicant. Because it is of a very high quality. It's got a very strong voice and perspective, and it's really well written, well illustrated, and well colored. Despite our nitpicks.
Yeah, I'm searching here. Yeah. So yeah, when this episode goes up, there'll still be a chance to back it if you want to. I'll plan to link to this from the show notes. So
do it. I'm gonna back it.
Okay. So
don't tell my creditors, but I'm gonna back it.
What's going on for you, comics wise?
God, I don't even know. Greg Hinkle and I are working on an original horror graphic novel for a publisher who is not me. And that'll be in stores next summer okay. 2022. And I'm sure I'll make a racket around that. But it's always it's always great when I can work with Greg Hinkle, my good friend and collaborator on Nocturnal Commissions and The Rattler. Mm-hmm. I am also still working on Ghost Band. That was funded last year, and we are producing the issues digitally. I'm lettering issue 2 tonight. Mm-hmm. And we will get that shipped out to backers in September, as promised. And then, some special things I got working on the wings. I did recently fund a prose book that I had written, a horror book for middle-aged readers. So I wrote a horror book, and then I took out all the cursing and sex. And now it's appropriate for middle-aged readers. And that one was called Creepers.
Or for what age group? What?
8 and up.
8 and up, okay.
Yeah, I co-wrote that with a novelist named Adrienne Ambrose. She made me look good. So I wrote a draft, and I sent it to her, and she fixed it and made it appropriate and sent it back to me. We tossed it back and forth. And that has illustrations from Justin Greenwood, comic book illustrator Justin Greenwood from Stumptown. He did illustrations for us.
Okay.
So there's a lot going on. There's some good stuff coming up. And I'm always looking for work that pays my rent as well. I'm teaching comics, and just loving life. Is happy to be alive.
Yeah.
2021. We made it. 2021. We made it.
Yeah, we made it through 2020.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's always good to catch up with you, my friend.
Yes, it is. And yeah, I should mention
Thanks for sending this over to me. This was a lot of fun to read.
So this is the last comic that we have in our queue. So this show always used to be me and Mulele, and then Mulele decided he was doing too much podcasting and not enough comicking. So he stepped away from the podcast so he could get his comics done. So I've been finishing off the comics that we still had in the queue with the various other friends, but we don't have any more comics in the queue right now, so people are going to have to send more comics.
Would you love to hear Tim tear your comic to pieces and make you feel small inside? Send your book over to Tim.
Or we might like it.
At destroyingcomics.com. At crushingyourhopesandreams.net.
Yeah, so if you would like us to critique your comic, send a PDF or a link to mail@deconstructingcomics.com, and we'll read at least 30 pages of it and critique it on the show. That's the spiel I have memorized.
To make a comic and have two middle-aged guys just kick it like a dog. Send it on over. Well, this was a pleasant surprise, and I'm looking forward to more of. You've now made me a fan of Karla Nappi.
Okay,
so
great.
Damn you.
Okay, well, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me on the last episode of Critiquing Comics.
The last for now. We'll do more when there's more comics. So, thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
Spoke too soon. We got another comic the other day, so in a couple weeks we'll be talking about that here on Critiquing Comics. Thanks for listening.